Now, Morgan, welcome to the podcast. It's good to have you on. Now, I know you go on a lot of podcasts, and I know this is very much your world. So I kind of wanted to start it off with asking you, what's a question that you always want to get asked on a podcast, but no one ever actually asks you on a podcast?
Far out. That is
So you don't have one.
That's the hardest question. You know, I'll start by, because like when I started being interviewed and all these things like it, and I started interviewing people on podcasts, I'd always start with, you know, breaking down their story and things like this. And then I started telling my story so many times, and now it's kind of, I can tell you what I don't like anymore. I'm like, very often I get on podcasts and people are like, so yeah, tell us where did it all start? I'm like, fuck man, like let's talk about something different. But shit, like something I haven't been asked, you know, that's a really hard question. I don't even know how to answer it. There's not really anything on the tip of my tongue on, you know, I like talking all things on. I think one thing that can be very useful, because I'm also trying to think of your audience, is one thing that could be very useful is diving into really like on a deeper level on how the brain works. Because I've always been absolutely obsessed on the brain, why we do the things we do, what makes up our, not even just psychology, but like on a neuroscience level, the three brains. A lot of people these days in the personal development space are like conscious mind, unconscious, and I teach a little bit as well. But there's like a whole other depth to it. And because I'm just very obsessed on influence, persuasion, these sorts of things, I've just always really liked why we do the things we do. And, you know, that whole topic is super interesting, and we can share some pretty gangster stuff that can be relatable to anything in life when it comes to actually achieving goals. My book I'm writing right now is actually essentially how to create your dream life. And when I was writing it, I'm like, essentially this is like how to hit your goals, but it's backed by psychology and neuroscience, not just airy-fairy stuff. And then my next book is going to be called Manipulation, how to manipulate others and manipulate yourself to get anything you want, because it's all backed on exactly how the brain works. I think once people really understand this, they can not only free themselves, but they can really learn how to get kind of anything they want in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're coming out with a book at the moment that you're writing. It's like the Dream Out Loud method.
Mm-hmm.
So going back, did you always feel like that was something you did? Did you have these dreams to be more and do more? Or was that something that you had to kind of almost teach yourself to want more? Because you said, I listened to a thing you said on a podcast recently, and you were talking about how you were falling into this way of living and being that's very standard, very normal, which is, again, is fine, but you saw more for yourself. And was that consciously you made the decision to dream more, or did you see something, or how did that kind of come about where you started to actually kind of go after and chase these dreams that you had?
Yeah, I think I've always been a dreamer. And I think the other dreamers will relate. Like I've always had this thing inside of a bigger, better version of like the ultimate goal in life. But then I don't want people who might be listening to this to be like, oh, but I don't really relate to that. It's like, because I think what's happened is every single one of us were born with, you know, this idea of wanting to actualize on something a lot bigger than what we currently have. But then what happens is, because here's the thing, I remember watching TV one day when I was a young kid, and I saw the race car drivers, and I just thought, I was like, man, they get paid money to race cars. What a fucking career. And I said to mom, I'm like, I want to do that when I get older. And she's like, yeah, good luck with that. It's not going to work. You know, or just some sort of, and I'm like, oh. Right? Because here's the thing, I think all of us are born with this desire, this untapped desire. I've never met a kid 5 years old who had limitations. I've never met a kid who, like, we meet 5-year-olds, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be Batman. Like, they're so fucking abstract, but they think they can be Batman. But then at some point, people are like, you got to be a little bit more realistic, Johnny. You can't, why can't they be Batman? What, could they be an actor one day? Could they be, you know, an entertainer at a movie world? Like, who knows? Can they be the actual Batman? Who knows, right? But it's like, I think people start to get these limitations put on them from the world, and that's when we start to really create our ideology and what really runs our life. From 0 to 7, we are an unconscious mind walking around. There is no prefrontal cortex created yet, okay? And what that means is the prefrontal cortex comes in and sort of like the bodyguard to the mind. When you're older, someone can say, hey, you can't do that. And we're like, oh, we can actually go, well, hold on, maybe I can. But up until 7, it's very suggestible. It's like when I put people in trance, I do hypnosis sometimes. And when people are going through hypnotherapy, the reason it works is because we can literally pierce and put suggestions right into their unconscious mind and rewire their unconscious mind, because there's no conscious mind in the middle of it being like, oh, but that doesn't make sense. That's too abstract, this or that. It's sort of put to the side. That is exactly how the mind is from 0 to 7. So you take this kid who's got this big idea, and then someone, somewhere, somehow has started to put limitations on it. And then it goes into the next developmental phase of their life. 7 to 14, the modeling phase. Okay, well, who's my role models? What are they doing? What's mum do? What's dad do? What's my uncle do? What's my friends do? What's Cardi B do? What's Drake do? Oh, they all talk about spending money. Okay, well, I'm going to make money. I'm going to spend money. And it creates this cycle of people just being broke and not actually becoming financially successful. Then the third phase from 14 to 21 is the socialization phase, where we start to identify with what's people around us doing, what's our social circles doing, what do they believe to be true about ourselves, what do they value, and they start to stack all these certain things in their mind. And then one day they go, you know what, they're 40 years old, and someone says, you wanted to be a professional speaker one day, what happened to that? Well, I just, don't know, it's too hard. And they've had all these limitations put on them. So I think I've always been a dreamer, but I think everyone has always been. But my edge was, I was always a bit of a rebel as well. So when someone would say, you can't do that, I'm the one who would go and touch the stove still just to test it. I'm like, what do you mean?
Watch this.
Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do it? Okay, fuck, it hurts, all right? But I'm going to find out for myself. And I've just always kind of had that playful attitude of like, I'm here to play. I'm not here to take life very seriously. I'm here to just play, touch things, test things, see what I like, see what I don't like. So yeah, from an early age, I always kind of had ambition to want to go and do more things. I saw that. I definitely saw that money was a way that made people unhappy. Like lack of money creates unhappiness. People are like, money doesn't make you happy. Yeah, well, lack of money will make you very unhappy very quickly. And there's actually been studies on this. We can talk about that. But I always saw that, my parents kind of were in the medium and they struggled and they was always stressed about money. And so I just saw it as like, well, I want to not be like that. I want to learn how to make money. And then there's just one thing after another.
Isn't it with like the money buys happiness or doesn't buy happiness? Isn't it there's some level about $100,000 or something, and then past that, the actual increase in happiness doesn't really go that far. But if you've got like a base salary of about 100 grand or a bit over, like all your needs are met, you're financially stable, like that will create a lot of happiness out of stability. But then once you go from like 100,000 to like 500,000, there's not much more happiness gets brought in that range.
Yeah, well, you know what actually creates happiness? They did a study on this, and because you just came back from Bali. Balinese people are some of the most nicest people ever. If you ever go to Fiji, same thing. They're the two most nicest people I've ever met, but some of the most poorest countries. And then you see people in Africa, they're dancing, they're so happy. What they found out, what actually creates unhappiness is too many choices. If you have not many choices and you're not aware of anything else, you're like, well, it's either this or this. You learn to create the happiness within. Well, this is life. This is all I know. It's almost like the ignorance is bliss thing. And they've literally found that, because I haven't done this, I haven't seen this study, but I would bet my bank that which country has the highest rate of people with high anxiety and depression, I would bet it's USA, right? North America, Australia, like these Western countries. I would bet. I don't think there's countries higher than that, okay? And the wealthier countries, because you get on social media these days and you see, oh my God, this guy's traveling, this girl's traveling, she's got a private jet, it's this. And there's so many choices that we can do. This is why the dating scene's fucked these days, because people get on any dating app they want and they have this perception of multiple choices. Where back 30 years ago, you dated the chick who lived in your freaking town or the one at your school you graduate with, because there's not as many choices.
Yeah.
So like that's what's actually creating unhappiness. It's not the money, but in a way, you have a lot of money, you have endless choices. So it's not the money, it's the fact that you're now left going, I can do anything I want, and it's losing that dopamine hit anymore. But yeah, there is definitely, like I think up to, I have seen also studies on what you're talking about. I can't remember right now, and I don't think it'd be accurate anymore, because I don't even think $100,000 to live anymore is a lot. Like, it's pretty crazy these days. But for an individual who doesn't run a company, I think your life's going to change substantially up until about 150, 180,000 a year. Like, the more you make, the better food you're having, the more luxury you're having, you get to travel a bit more. And then me personally, inside of like business, I say this with my friends. I said to my mate the other day, actually, he's like, we just made $70K this month. I said, that's great. what's your next goal? He's like, oh, we want to double it. I said, why? He's like, oh, because I don't know, we should. I'm like, says who? Like, because I'm telling you right now, if you're making 70K a month in your business and you've only got like one little staff member and it's chill and it's easy, your profit margins are huge. I'm like, bro, that's really good, because for you to scale to 140, 150K a month, it's a different beast. You're going to need team. You're going to be more stressed. You're going to need to manage shit. And is that what you actually want? Is that worth it, right? And what I've really noticed is in business, after about 600, 700K a year, life doesn't change that much. I think then there's a limit, because like right now, like if I want to travel, I travel. If I want to eat out, I eat out. Like I do what I want. Life's pretty chill, and I've created that. If I want to fly first class, I'll fly first class, but I don't fly private. So I think up until, and I think Alex Hormozy even said that, it's like after you like, there's like a few mil a year, it's not really going to change much. Because if you want to fly private, you fly private. If you want to go eat at Nobu every dinner, you eat at Nobu. If you want to have an assistant, house manager, a driver, you have that. And then what else is there after that? You know?
I guess that's the thing. Hey, it's, you can make more money, but that comes with a lot more stress. And I guess that's the thing that you've got to balance out of, what do I actually want or what do I actually need here? And I guess I felt this, like I just said, I just got back from Bali, and you don't live a very stressful life. You live quite a cheap life, simple things, and you go, me personally was like, what do I actually want and what do I actually need? And once you take out a lot of these things that you said, like these options and these things that get put in front of you, and go, oh, actually, I don't think I need all of these things. I'm pretty happy with these very basic things and people and experiences. And you go, okay, maybe I don't need to make the $500,000, or maybe I don't need to make all this money that then also has all this stress attached to it. Because I've seen people that have been super successful in business, and I wouldn't want to trade my life for theirs. It's like, yeah, you got the nice car, you've got the nice house, but I see you constantly in stress, and I see you constantly being anxious, and you're like, I wouldn't trade that. And I'd say you'd probably see this a lot, especially with people you'd interview, where you would interview millionaires, and some would probably have it figured out, but other people you'd see, like the wheels are always turning. And it's like, are you actually free in your life? Even though you're making 7 figures a year, your brain, is it that worth the stress you're putting in your body to keep maintaining that kind of wealth? Have you seen that, and how has that been affected your opinion of it?
You know, it's the high achievers paradox. It's we want to keep doing more because we think we haven't done much. But the more we achieve, the more we feel like we haven't actually done anything. And it's this ever-ending cycle of continually wanting to strive for more and do more and be more, but knowing deep down actually we'll never ever get to a place where we feel content, because a true high achiever is the person who wants to get far away from anything that's content. And it is this paradox, and there's this cycle of just continually achieving. So a long time ago, I just switched this mantra in my head. Instead of trying to achieve to be happy, I happily achieve. And we've got big goals and big ambitions, and I think we'll keep growing, because the grind, the actual hustle of I do like stress. I do like challenges to solve. And I think if I didn't have that, I wouldn't feel challenged in life. So that genuinely lights me up, as long as I'm doing something that's fulfilling for me. But it is blended in with my life. Like we were just saying before, I was talking to my sister. I'm like, oh no, I want to skydive on Friday. I'm like, don't put that on Friday. I'm going to skydive. So I'm like, I have a lot of flexibility to just play in life as well. But it's key to really understand what's driving you, for sure. You know, through the Dream Ladder method, I teach there's 4 main things that will show up in your life when you're not really living your dream life, right? The first one is self-doubt. Okay, because there's like 5 pillars, there's 5 laws to creating a dream life, and when the 4 of them overlap and they're not embodied, they'll have negative sort of implications. You can see a green light, right, or a red light of what I should be focusing on. Self-doubt, procrastination, self-sabotaging, but then unfulfillment. And the unfulfillment comes from it's the whole chestnut story. Oh, I spent the last 40 years of my life building this business, but it's not even for me. Because I did it to try to prove to my dad. I did try to do this, and like that's sad. I think our generation are better though. Like I think that's an older mentality, because like our generation are very like aware. They're a lot more aware. They're into personal development. They're into like doing things that feel right for them. And that's a blessing and a curse. But that's definitely one of the things, like being aware of what's actually driving you. Are you driving because it's a fulfilling prophecy for you, or are you doing it because you're trying to please a need inside? Are you doing it because, well, when I become a millionaire, then my dad will love me? And of course, it's not a conscious thing. We don't wake up and be like, I don't need to make $1 million because then dad will love me. No, it's like it's a very deeper unconscious thing where we have this perception of like, oh, I'm not loved because this, and there's these tied in beliefs and all these things. And this is why I love personal development, having to do the work on ourselves and continually analyzing our thoughts and what's driving our behaviors. I met a guy the other day in Mexico, and they just came back. I heard them talking about this crazy retreat that they were doing and like a big self-discovery sort of thing. And they were saying all these things, and I started asking him questions. And one of the things he said to me was, he's like, you know what? I've been doing the work for so long. Everyone says like, you need to do the work, do the work, do the work. But what the fuck is the work? I'm like, that's funny. I've never thought about that. Because sometimes I'll say, do the work on yourself. And he's like, what the fuck is the work? And then I put it to this. I'm like, well, what I think the work is the continual analysis of your own behavior and questioning, why am I doing that? Especially if it's bad behavior. So if you got addictions, you got, doing things that are not serving your life, or you're sabotaging in any sort of way where it's just not helping you. And then if it happens recurring, that's called a pattern. I'll always, if I do one bad behavior, I'm like, it's one bad habit. Like, sure, whatever. I'm not gonna lose sleep over like trying to question everything in life. Some people do. This must mean something. No, it can mean nothing as well. Like nothing means anything except for the meaning you give it. But if I keep doing a behavior over and over and over, it's not serving me. I'm like, this is a pattern. Okay. Where's it coming from? What am I trying to, because we're either being motivated by pleasure or to avoid pain. So I'll ask myself the question, what am I gaining from this? What's the payoff I get by doing this? Because we get a payoff. Whether it be if we go out and drink and just get wasted every single weekend, and I don't like it, what's the payoff I get? Okay, well, maybe it's the payoff. I get to escape my emotions. I get to connect with people. I get to maybe try and pick up. I get someone to validate me. Maybe it's these things. This takes a lot of, I don't know what the right word would be, like a lot of I don't know what the right word would be. Like you got to be real with yourself. And I've always been very good at that. To be like,
but it's even asking yourself the whys behind each one of those things that you're doing, and then go deeper and okay, well, why am I going out? Oh, because I want connection with people. Why? Oh, because, and then you actually figure yourself out when you like by the fourth why you go, fuck, I need to go talk to my mum, or I need to talk to my, you know what I mean? It can bring some stuff up.
Yeah. But like it's good questions to ask. It's like, what's the payoff I'm getting from it, and what am I avoiding by doing this? Because you're avoiding something that you perceive as painful, more painful than actually going out. So you're avoiding something and you're getting a payoff by doing it. And then in the moment, you do a shitty behavior that instantly pleases both biggest motivators. You get a payoff, which is pleasure, and you avoid the pain. Yes. Then you get, and this is called a vice, by the way. This is like the paradox of vices. With our two emotional homes, there's like if people don't know how to really access great levels of emotion, like they don't know how to feel joy, love, gratitude, or anything like this, like congruently. And they live in these two homes, which is maybe at work all day long, they're completely stressed and they're anxious and they feel like it's just, and they come home and they're guilty, let's just say, all right? And there are two homes that they live in. No matter where they go, they feel like shit. So eventually that has to burst out somewhere. So they do something that makes them feel not shit. Dopamine. Dopamine makes you feel amazing. Snort a line of cocaine, you feel fucking incredible. Take 5 tequila shots, you can talk to any girl in the bar. And this is why people have vices. They become alcoholics, they take drugs, they cheat, they gamble, they watch porn. All these addictions come and they don't like it, but they do it because it feels better than feeling like shit. And it also creates a cycle because they do the thing they know they don't like doing, and then they feel more shit about it. And it's this whole destructive cycle. So I like to sort of look in. That's what I think is doing the work, is just analyzing my behaviors. Are they good or are they bad? If they're bad, then what am I avoiding? What's the payoff I'm getting from this? And what am I, like, really diving into that? Like, what's the thing I'm really avoiding understanding? What am I avoiding doing? And, the old saying, the truth will set you free. Dive into, well, I'm avoiding this because I don't want to have an uncomfortable conversation with my dad. Maybe go do that then. And it's going to be hard. If you do what's hard now, life will be easy. If you do what's easy now, life will be very, very hard. So I've seen a lot of people.
Because I heard a thing recently and it just said the only way is through. And I think with that stuff, when you like the hard conversation with yourself, the hard conversation with someone else, the feelings that you need to go through. Like I've had friends and they've lost parents and they've distracted themselves for a long time because they didn't want to feel it, which is understandable. Like it doesn't feel good to feel that kind of stuff. But if you don't go through it, you're going to feel that continuously for a long amount of time. Where if you can actually sit with it and feel it and understand it, you can come out the other side and go, okay, I get it now. I get it. It hurts and it doesn't feel good, but I get it. And I think, like you said, we distract ourselves with porn, alcohol, friendships, like things that are good and bad for us, but you still distract yourself. And like only you know what you actually need to go through and feel. I was going to ask you, you talked about like subconsciously doing something for someone else. And you mentioned a couple of times there doing it, like when you start a business, you're doing it for your dad. Did you find any part of you starting your business, you were doing it for a subconscious idea to prove your parents or your family not wrong, but like prove that you could do the thing that you set out to do?
I don't think so. Like to get started, I can try and break down because there's journeys, right? What got me started was purely the pain I was avoiding was I was hating my life. I was a carpenter. I was an apprentice carpenter. I was making $7 an hour, working 14, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I hated it. And I just knew, I was like, if I don't change something, then this is going to be my life forever. I looked around me, I saw the people that stayed there. They were alcoholics. They're just losers. Like, it was very rare to find someone who was 50 doing that job that actually had a great life. It was rare. So that was the big thing for me. I'm like, I don't want this. I want to get clear on it, right? And then when I started, that was really the biggest driver. It wasn't to try and prove something or anything like that. I think, and if I was to be very, very real, I think as a male, males do have this fundamental thing to always want to prove something to their dad very unconsciously. I wouldn't say it was a destructive thing, but it was something I was definitely aware of. Because I remember, I think, even sort of just have someone like, your parents be like, hey, I'm proud of you, or that's good. Or to this day, I don't think both my parents actually know what I really do. My mom actually is coming to Dreamfest. She's like, I'm going to come down with my friend. And I'm like, she's like, can I come down? I'm like, yeah, it's going to be funny. It's the first time my mom's ever been at a fucking event. She's going to have her mind blown. There's going to be hundreds of people there that have come there for us. And she's going to be like, it's just going to be funny.
How does that make you feel though, having her want to come and actually see it after like you've obviously been doing it for so long?
Yeah, it's good. But it's like I learned to detach from I don't need it. It's great. I don't need it. So it's not like, and that was a good signal for me because I was sort of, when she was like, oh, I'm going to come down. It wasn't, I was trying to witness like my body. Is this emotional for me or anything? But I was just like, oh, cool. Like it's kind of expected. Like, well, you should fucking come and see what I do. Kind of do some cool stuff. Come and see what we do.
Because you talked about your like 3 core values, I think were health, love, success.
Love, success, fun.
Wouldn't you draw in your mum coming to support you in an event you're doing? That's a big element of love right there.
You'd think so, right? It's interesting. My family dynamic is weird. So it's funny. Like it's very interesting because like, and the whole family thing is definitely like probably like my next chapter to sort of like dive into a little bit more. But I also play on the balance of going like, is it necessary to also dive into? Like in the personal development space, you can want to keep going and you just go in this fucking rabbit hole. It's like, for what purpose though? Is this going to have a great outcome? For what purpose? Is it,
Yeah, how much can we unpack something that doesn't need to be unpacked?
Yeah, it's like people just fall into this cycle of like, I've got to do this. I've got to go sit and do ayahuasca in the bush. Yeah. Bro, you should probably lay off the fucking ayahuasca for a second. Try that, but it's interesting. Like my whole family dynamic is just very bizarre. Like I would say we didn't grow up. We grow up with a lot of love in the way that mum and dad knew how to give it, right? And so they did their absolute best, but how they did their best was dad worked as much as he could, right? And then when he came home, he was tired and grumpy and he went to sleep. And that was growing up with dad. But they were always at my soccer games. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like it wasn't bad, but what's important is the perception of the child. That's all that matters. It's like how you internalize the things. Because they did their absolute fucking best. They stayed together in a really crappy marriage they didn't enjoy for 28 years and then got divorced once we were old enough. So I think I was 16. They were like, we're getting divorced. We're like, why? Like, you guys never even fight. In fact, you guys never even talk. In fact, okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? But so I modeled that. Think about that for intimacy. I modeled growing up, mum and dad just living together, doing house together. They were like co-parenting almost, you know what I mean? There was no intimacy, there was no love, there was nothing like that, but they loved us in the way that they knew how to, which growing up now and looking back, and I'm like, that's probably why the relationship and even my siblings, it's just fucking bizarre, So I often just joke about like my partner. I'm like, it's just fucking bizarre. Like we do things with the family, and like no one really knows how to. I think they want to connect, but they don't know how to.
Yeah,
there's fear there because there's just the onion layers of the human brain, attachment, this and So I've sort of done a lot of fucking work where I could go deep with them,
Did you
frightened them.
Did you have an aha moment when you were growing up and obviously seeing your parents live this way, and then you would kind of probably mimic that in relationships you'd had? And was there a moment when you go, oh, fuck, this isn't how I want to do it, and then realize, a bit more self-aware that I need to do the work to actually change this?
I can see my dad. I can see the same patterns that my dad played out in me sometimes in relationships. Because he would sort of, if he had a problem, he's like, oh, fuck, I'm not going to talk about it, and walk away. He's a bit of an avoider. Yeah. And my attachment style was for sure avoidant. Now I'm pretty damn secure. But if I get pissed off, you know, like if I'm having an argument with Simona and it's just like, she's Eastern European, right? And an ex-lawyer, so she fucking knows how to argue. And then we always joke about it. We always joke about it, right?
Dangerous combination.
So she'll just come sometimes, and I'm like, I'm done with this conversation. She's like, right. I'm like, I'm done. I'm just gonna fucking, you know what I mean? Like, so I can notice in my head, and be like, just fuck off. I'm like, even like the idea is, go get a hotel on your own tonight. I'm like, just relax. Like, just, you know what I mean? Like, so the thoughts are there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I can definitely see that play out with how I witnessed it from dad. But thankfully, when I started to want to take relationships seriously, I started to look for who are some good role models. And I always think of a very good friend of mine over in Canada. They just have they're just amazing. Super, super, super loving marriage together. They've been married for like, I don't know, long, 25 plus years. And, you know, when I started hanging out with them, I started to consciously actually realize, like, I want to consciously start picking up how do they do life together? Because that's a really great relationship. So that was the thing I intercepted, to be like, I was just aware of the things. If I learn how to do a relationship from my parents, they didn't love it, or didn't end well. I want to do it from someone who's got a great one.
Yeah, learn from someone who's done it right. I heard as well, when you were younger, you were a bit of a fuck up. You were a bit of a naughty kid. And I can relate to this a lot. I felt like I traveled a lot when I was younger. I felt like I was quite street smart. I was very aware of how the world worked. But when it came to actually sitting in a classroom and taking notes down, I just didn't engage with it. And I knew that if I actually had something I engaged with, I put a lot of energy into it and I could be quite successful at it. And then when I actually found mountain biking and racing, I engaged myself in that and got really good at it. But it was like figuring out what you're good at and what your strengths are and then working towards them. And you mentioned before how you were being a tradie and you're doing that and you started to kind of realize that wasn't for you. But you've got a point where you realize it's not for you, but you have to break away from that. And I was going to say, how did that feel in terms of isolation and loneliness, going from a point of like, yeah, you're in a group, it's not your group, but you're still in it, you feel somewhat safe, and breaking out of that to do what you know you should do, and how that felt in that time before you actually found the people and the processes and the things that you needed to do to actually become the person you are now?
Yeah. I think school taught me to do that, man. Like school's fucking hard. Like, kids suck. Like, you know, definitely got bullied in certain ways. I think everybody got bullied in certain ways. Like, I can even remember, like, back in, like, grade 6, like, you know when, like, kids are really young and they're just so fucked? I even remember going to hang out with my friends one time and they all turned their back on me and then ran away. And I'm like, fuck is this? Are we playing a running game? And I started running. And I realized, like, they're fucking running away from me. And then there was, like, a week in my life where my friends just stopped talking to me. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And it was just so bizarre. And I remember just little things like this. And then after a week, they were like, oh, we can be friends again. I was just like, what the fuck? Like, kids are just cooked, right? And so I think from a young age, I learned how to go, I don't understand other people's behavior, and it's bizarre and that's okay, but I've had to learn to be also okay with not needing people. And that's been a journey to go, I like to be around people, but I don't need to be around people anymore. And then also I'll analyze if it is a point. So even when I travel by myself sometimes, I'll always like to go look for salsa, like social salsa and bachata and stuff, because I dance. I'm like, that's a good way to meet people while I'm out and have some fun while I travel. I always check in, do I want to do this? Or am I needing to do this? Am I wanting to just go and have a little dance, have a little bit of fun and do whatever? Or am I needing to this because I need to talk to someone, because I need someone to touch me or whatever? And I just check in. And so if it's a need, I'm like, interesting. Okay, well, what's not being met within myself? How am I not meeting that within myself? Or if it's a want, and by the way, I don't go too deep in it. I think people just fuck themselves up just going too deep. Like, oh, no, I'm going to meditate for an hour. Bro, just go and enjoy life. So I think when the time came to like school was just interesting. But I had all my friends, but thankfully when I started my business and made that transition from like one group to another, I had a good community there in the new space because I started building a network marketing business. So there was like a huge community and culture there of people who were like telling me you can be successful. I never forget I went and sat in a Porsche, like 911, took a photo, and I remember talking to the dealership guy, being like, he's like, so like I was young, like 23. He goes, so you thinking about buying this? I said, one day. He goes, how old are you? I'm like 23. He's like, well, actually, you can't even buy it. He goes, because no insurance company will will insurance you until you're 25. So you would have to drive this uninsured as a $500,000 car. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's a later in life goal. And I remember taking a photo, putting it on Facebook, and I got people just, you're fucking idiot. Is it? You'd never buy a Porsche, blah, 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 blah. All this stuff, like my old circle. And in a way, that just indicated for me that I'm like, you guys were my friends, or these people that pretend to be my friends. And now when I'm trying to pursue my dreams and ambitions, you're attacking me. I'm like, that's just a good indicator. Like, I don't know where my new circle is, but sure fucking isn't here. That was certainty. I'm like, I'd rather be by myself and pursue what I want than hide amongst a crowd that pleases their own insecurities. And I'll never forget, I had a friend in my new community came up to me at an event. He goes, hey, I saw you in the in your new Porsche 911 the other day. He goes, I just want to say to you, when you buy that, I want to be the first one to go for a drive in it. And I'm like, and I remember that day, and I'm like, I've never had someone believe in me like that. So it's super important to have a community of you can borrow belief from someone when you're in times of uncertainty, when you're in times of, I'm not sure if this works, or the transition from one group to the next is fucking hard. So it's important to have someone in that new group that can just pour belief into you. And if you're in that new group and someone's transitioning in, the best thing to do is pour belief into them. Because that's what I was really looking for. I was just looking for someone, like, I'm like, am I delusional? Can I do this? I'm not. I've never grown up in a rich household. Then I had someone who was very rich say to me, you can do that. And I want to be the first one to drive in it. And I'm like, it's crazy because I saw someone who had no limitations and see what he saw. It's a game changer.
Yeah, it's all it takes, isn't it? Just one person. Have you caught yourself in moments, though, of when you see someone in the same space as you succeeding at the thing that you want to succeed at? Have you caught yourself, even though you might not say anything or do anything, have you caught yourself feeling those somewhat feelings of resentment and jealousy towards the person doing what you want to do? And then how do you deal with that, analyze it, and then actually just show up and be supportive to that person?
For sure. I 100 million% compare. I think that's also the thing of someone who's just ambitious. So we always want to get that next level. And if there was no one there, this is also the paradox. If you were at the top, it'd be depressing. Like, I get to the top and you're like, you got no one else to chase. So in a way, I like to chase other people, but it does piss me off sometimes as well. But I don't get jealous. I'm not a jealous guy because I'm very mindful is I just understand how the mind works. If I'm jealous of something you've done, but I want that thing, my unconscious mind is going to create an association to, well, fuck, if I become that, people are going to be jealous of me and not like me. And I want to be liked. Everybody wants to be loved and liked. So I know there'll be resentment. I can't have resentment. I learned that there's a book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. And that book changed my life in terms of thinking about wealth. Because he's like, a lot of people look at rich people like, rich people are greedy and, you know, stinking rich and all this stuff. And they have these negative associations to rich people. But everyone wants to be rich. I've never met anyone who would turn down $1 million. Everybody wants it. Then they realize why they don't get it, because they have this perception of hating on people that have the thing that they want. But then they'll never get it because their unconscious mind will sabotage it to be like, well, I don't want to be hated. We don't want to be hated. We don't want to be outcasted. So I'm very mindful of that. So I wouldn't call it jealousy, but I would call it, I get pissed off. Right? I wouldn't be like, oh, fuck, I wish I could do that. It's not that. I get agitated. I'm like, why the fuck is it better than mine? I'm like, what are we doing? So it's like that. It's like, what the fuck? Their social media is just growing so fast. We're working so hard to grow. So why the fuck is theirs better? Team, what are they doing? It's like that. It's not like, it's not jealousy. It's more of it's not even competitive. I'm not a competitive person. It's just more like we want it to work like that. What are they doing that we're not? Fuck, it pisses me off. That it looks like it's easier for them, but it's probably never not.
But you probably use that as fuel as well.
Yeah, but I definitely get into that. And that's not I wouldn't say that's a good, I think it probably helps a little bit, but I wouldn't say it's a good behavior.
Yeah. Like
for this reason, I do unfollow a lot of people still, because I'm like, if I catch myself looking at things they do, too much, and it's like it's not serving me, I'm like, unfollow. And since doing it, my life gets easier because it's almost like they just disappear on my awareness. I get back to focus on in my own lane. It's always the cure. It's always the cure to comparison. Get rid of the people out of your awareness who you're comparing yourself with, and just get back to what it is you're fucking doing. And compare, like the old chestnut story, compare to where you were a year ago, right? So I'll compare sideways, upwards, and backwards, right? I'll compare, okay, how was I last year? That makes me feel good. We're progressing. Great. Like I'm good. Boost of pride, boost of ego. I'll compare sideways. What are the people very similar to me doing? Okay, they're doing okay. They're doing a little less than me. Okay, that makes me feel okay as well. There's some people that are doing very close to me. Okay, we're all on the same path. Then I'll look at the big inspiration. Fuck, these guys are killing it. And that's what I want to pursue into. How can I replicate? How can I model some things that they're doing? And I just really check in to make sure it's not coming from a place of jealousy or anything like that, because it's never going to serve us.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of get that point across because I can see when people see someone successful and they probably have this idea that they don't have those emotions. It's like, no, they have those emotions. They just know how to deal with them better. Like they can still feel that. They can still see someone winning and go like, even though I'm killing it and winning in my space, someone else is always doing better. And even no matter how big you get, you can always have that emotion of like, how do I do better? How can I do more? How can I, and you still feel it, but it's like how you deal with it. Instead of, I couldn't imagine you going on like competitors' profile and going, oh, this sucks. Like you're not going to put out that kind of negative energy out into the world, but you still have to feel that emotion to go, how can I do this better? They're doing something I want to do. How do I make myself better? How do I make my business better? And how do I go further? And I think just making people known that no matter where you are in business or life, that you can still have those emotions, how you process those emotions and then come out the other side is what's important, not the fact you have the emotions.
This comes back to doing the work. Very quickly analyzing in each moment, what is the meaning I'm making this thing mean? That's key. It's like if an event happens and we're like, oh, that means that I'm shit there better. That's doing the work, quickly intercepting that. Because you said, yeah, we feel it, but better at internalizing. Because that's the thing. I might be like, oh my God, what the fuck? Like my friend told me the other day, he's like, oh, we made 11 million bucks this month. And I was in Europe the whole month, had the whole month off. I'm like, first thought was, I'm like, fucking hell, bro. And then the second thought was, that's so amazing. Like, I'm so proud of you. Like, you guys are fucking killing it. Like, you know, very good friend, completely different business and everything. But I'm just like, that's mind blowing. He's like, we had our biggest month and we had the whole month off. I'm like, that's so good for you. Like, you motherfucker. Like, that's great. But, you know, they're the people I ask for advice on. I'm like, because when I go through bigger problems, I'm like, dude, how would you handle this? Having good people like that in your circle. What did you say?
Use them, yeah.
What did you say just before? I was going to say something else, but I forget. What did you say before that last question? Or
the last question about in regards to what?
I can't even remember. My brain's gone.
Like come back. About being self-aware enough to be happy for someone else that's succeeding in the same space you're succeeding in on that topic.
Oh, no, I was going to share a story. So there was this guy, one of my friends, he reached out to me years ago, and he was a big Wall Street investor, and he reached out, he's like, hey, I'm looking to start building a personal brand. Can I come on your podcast? I said, yeah. Put him on the podcast, and then after the podcast, he was like, dude, let's stay connected. He was just growing his Instagram. He had like 6,000 followers, and he was growing and growing and growing. Then I see him just hustling hard. Podcast, boom, 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 doing all these things. He reached out to me about 6 to 8 months after I started my podcast. He goes, dude, I'm about to start my podcast. Have you got any advice? I said, yeah, I got advice. I'm actually about to build a course on it. So here, do this. So you'll launch it, and get some good results. He followed my steps. He did it. He got his podcast into the top 50 in America for business. And then he started fucking killing it. And then he quickly exploded his podcast. His podcast is huge. He's had like Ed Milet, Tom Bilyeu, Dean Graziosi. He's had some big plays on it that haven't been on my show yet. And he grew his Instagram following to about 125,000. I reached out to him a year later. I said, bruh, like you were like, I was helping you get started. Now you're surpassed me crazy. What are you doing? And then what I was going to say is the people that are doing better reach out to them like this and say, I want to buy your time. I'm like, what's an hour worth to you? Send me a link. I want to buy an hour. I want to pick your brain because obviously you're doing something right. And I did that. I said, here's money. We're going on a call for an hour, 90 minutes. And he started just teaching me some things. And then some of it was useful. Some of it was really not useful. I applied some things, not the rest. But you know what's funny? We often compare to people just in the sprint. It's like, but really understand. It's like right now the stock markets are crashing and people are like, oh, there's going to be a recession. It's like, no, Warren Buffett just sold, like there's a big tech rise. Warren Buffett's moving some funds and he's being smart. He's taking, like people are allowed to withdraw. People are like, everything's crashing. I was talking to my friend. He's a big investor. And he's like, zoom out 10 years. And it's like a little dip. And everything's dip, 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 dip. It's like up and down and up and down and up and down. He's like, just zoom out. It's like, oh, there's nothing. There's actually not a crisis happening. There's not a recession happening. Just there was stocks wiped off. That's very normal. It happens. And it's the same thing with our success. Zoom out your success. Zoom out theirs. And compare yourself on the big grand scheme. Because you know what? He messaged me the other day because my Instagram's outgrown him. I'm running these big events. He wrote his book before me, all these things. I'm like, this guy's killing it. Now he's like, dude, like you're killing it. Like, what the fuck can you? I'm like, this is just funny. Because it's almost like now I'm in the lead of our comparable actions, right? Now I'm in the lead, but he was in the lead.
Yeah.
It's like it's a fucking race, man. I overtook you right now, but he might overtake me in 6 months.
Yeah.
All right. So that's why it's good to compare sideways to people that like this. Because even one of my very close friends, he grew his Instagram from 8,000 followers to over 100,000 in like a few months. And I'm like, he used to always ask me like for advice. Now I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You know. So it's like it's always just so. Back to the sort of the moral of the story is. I never get jealous, but I always get curious. Never jealous, but I'm curious. I'm like, fascinating. What are they doing that I'm not? What can I learn from this? And how can I stay in a relationship with this person? Because I want to be able to learn from them, but I also know that it's a race. It's a marathon. And right now they're in front, but I'll also have my win. You know, and as long as you stay in the game, then it's going to come back.
Yeah, just keep staying in it, keep working towards it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, talk about that, like looking at something on a grand scale and seeing how it's a small dip and then obviously it doesn't really affect, but as long as you're still going up. Can you think back in your life to a moment that you would probably see as one of the worst moments of your life, but then looking forward actually turned into one of the best things that ever happened to you?
Yeah. When I was building my first business, I thought I was doing really, really well. My goal was I want to be the number one income earner in the company under 25. I did that. I want to get this massive like award in front of everybody. They called it, like, this is my old network marketing business. And I wanted to become what was called a start ambassador, where they sort of like label you as like the GOAT of all the young people. And I got that. And then I wanted to be interviewed by a billionaire. And I got that. And I wanted to speak in front of the biggest crowd, which was 6,000 people. And I did that. And I got off stage after doing that. And I was like, what is this shit? And it was nothing that I thought it was going to be. And then a month later, COVID happened, and I had a Canada tour, Asia tour, USA tour. I was speaking Mexico, New Zealand tour, and Australian tour booked up. I was going to be speaking at something like 20-something events in the next 11 weeks. It was chaos, but I was also like, this is what I want. I felt like I was a rock star. And then COVID started just cancelling. Okay, you can't go to Canada anymore. USA as well. Mexico as well. Okay, no international travel, only New Zealand. Okay, not New Zealand. Okay, you can do Australia. Okay, but you can't do Perth. You can't do Tasmania. You can't. Okay, not states. Okay, you can't do any event. I'm like, all within days. I'm like, what? So this whole year I thought I was gonna do that. My whole plan just got completely changed, and that made me actually realize that the only reason I was really doing that business still was because I wanted to keep doing these events and speaking and traveling, and it made me realize I was doing it for the wrong reason. And when I realized all that, I just stopped everything. I was like, I'm actually fucking burned out. Like I was really done. And I went through a few months of just completely kind of lost, but okay. Like, cause obviously I was still making good money every single week, but I had to be okay with letting go of the guilt that I had on my shoulders, thinking that I was still responsible for other people because we had a team, an organization. I was this leader that I wanted so bad. And they were like, oh, you should speak at events. Like everyone's worried right now. You should try and put some belief into people. And I'm like, you know what? I'm fucking sick of people relying on me. Like, and it was really weird. And I remember this was the biggest thing. We had some investments in an investment, and this was actually just when COVID hit. I had a gut feeling that said, take your money out of this investment. So we were trading. Take your money out because you're too top heavy right now. So I had to throw a lot of other cash, like settle things in Bali, and I lived there and all this. And I ignored it. A week later, my friend says to me, he's like, I don't know how to tell you this, but we lost everything. The stock markets crashed. The currency crashed that day when COVID hit. Like, it lost like heaps. I don't know how to tell you this. We lost everything. I'm like, will it come back up? He's like, it's not a stock. It's like, it was a trade, and it's gone. Everything's gone. 100% of it. I'm like, huh. And I remember that moment being like, that was the poorest I've been in years. And I had this identity of like, I was the young, successful guy. And I looked at my bank and I'm like, how the fuck did this happen? But then this led me down the whole rabbit hole of everything I teach now. Because I'm like, that was a self-sabotaging thing. It was a very unconscious. I unconsciously ignored the gut. Could have took the money out. Could have been more responsible. And everything just came like life just changed. And then I remember just saying, well, time to get back to work. And I went upstairs, I got on my laptop and started working and got like things moving again. And thankfully, like I earn like a residual income from that business. So I'm like, it's not the end of the world. And, but that was about a 6-month journey of just really going 6 to probably 10-month journey actually of just going, what am I doing next? Like, what am I actually doing? What am I building? I'm over this. What's next? But I feel guilty. I should do this. And, yeah, that was probably, I wouldn't really call it the lowest, but it was, that was a strange moment for me. But I think it was also very important because it allowed me to take space without putting pressure on myself to do something for other people. And it allowed me to really birth everything I'm doing now. So I remember running my first event in the middle of weird COVID stuff where we couldn't run events. Then I was like, okay, we can have 100 in a room. As soon as I saw that green light, I messaged a friend of mine, like, dude, speak at this event with me. I'm just going to run an event. And we did it in 10 days. We put 100 people in a room. And then people came up to me after and they go, this is such a good event. When's your next one? I go, I don't know. I don't know I do events. And that really started it all. So out of just seeing an opportunity and seeing wanting to just play with something again, like I was like, let's just throw an event for a bit of fun. If we can make some money, I think I made like 25K or something that day. It was the biggest day I ever had actually. I was like, I made $25,000 in a day? What the fuck? Like now I think the biggest like 270 or something in a day. And you know, like I want to beat that by the end of the year. I think we'll do it. The goal is to do over $500,000 in a day by the end of the year. And yeah, so looking back now, if that didn't happen, I think I would have kept continuing on that path. Would have taken me probably a few more years to really realize I don't like this because I was staying busy. The busyness was keeping me not actually seeing what was inside. And I remember sitting on the couch.
Distracted, eh?
Yeah.
Distracted.
I was sitting on the couch one day. But I just went through the biggest breakup of my life as well. So it's a combination of a few things. I was like burning out. I had a spinal injury, so I was barely sleeping properly. I was working so much and the biggest breakup of my life. I remember sitting on the couch one day and because I was just like, what am I doing? I was just lost. And I started crying. I was like, what's wrong with me? I remember walking into my room and I'm like, what? Like I was like trying to analyze. Like I was like, I'm just fucking crying, but why and what's happening? And I messaged my friend who was living there. I was like, are you free? And she used to be a therapist actually. And so she came down. She's like, I'm like, let's just talk. And I'm like, and we're just talking about stuff. And she's like, maybe you should just go book a holiday. I'm like, okay. And yeah, so it's just like, that were the weird times. But that was definitely a bizarre like time in my life. But I think it also comes in seasons as well. I think we really have like a lot of certainty for like a 5-year period. And then, you know, I also say to people, if you're not going through periods of really doubting yourself and your ability to do it, then you're not pushing the needle hard enough as well.
Yeah, if you know you've got it sorted. I guess we chatted about that before. When everything's certain, it's kind of boring. It's like when you kind of go into something, I'm like, well, I'm going to put everything into this, but I don't know how it's going to work out.
Yeah.
And that adds a bit of excitement to it.
Yeah, I do like a bit of chaos.
Well, coming back to, I guess, the whole, like you jumping out of planes, you skydiving, like you, I guess, like to flirt with the unknown of how something's going to pan out.
I love it.
Yeah.
I forget what it was the other day. Oh no, I won't share that story. That's a bit out of the box story. And I was talking to my friend about just taking risks. And he goes, you fucking do that? I said, yeah, like I just love it. Like I love finding the line of this could be really bad or this could be really good. Like for me, that is just so much excitement in that. It's a big reward. I'm a huge dopamine seeker. I'm a big risk taker. Like I just like really swinging big at things and be like, if this works, it could be absolutely chaotic. But if it doesn't work, it'd be chaotic. But if it works, holy shit. And still with that, like, because I haven't lost I haven't really swung big at things like that and felt the side of like, oh my God, it's destroyed everything. Because I still have measurable risks. Like I still, have a sense of, life. But with skydiving, yeah, I love it. I really love for me, it's a big self-trust thing. I think that's what it really is. It's the ability to really execute and see what I'm really made of. It's the ability to see what I'm actually fucking made of. Like when shit gets real, when you jump out of an airplane and you have 60 seconds, right? Well, if you didn't pull your parachute, maybe 70, 75 seconds before you hit the floor and die, you better know how to figure shit out, think clearly, know how to deploy your parachute. And if there's a problem, like a malfunction, apparently they happen. I thought parachuting was quite safe. No, like malfunction happen. You can pull your parachute out and it can be a hole in it. Like the cords might rip, they might get twisted. That can happen. I'm like, so how do you handle that? I'm like, oh, it's exciting. It's exciting. But it made me realize it actually built a lot of self-esteem in myself doing this. Like when I do, because it's really the epitome of doing things that are very hard, very scary. And in the moment of chaos, having to figure out how I would handle it. And then when you get to the other side of it and handling something that's quite stressful, for me, like it really boosts a lot of self-esteem. Like it builds more evidence. And this is the advice I give people. I do tell a lot of people to go skydive. But sometimes, people are pussies. So if you don't want to skydive, I think it's go and choose the things that are quite hard, whether it be like people do 75 hard or whatever. Go do something that is pretty hard for you to do and start to collect evidence of you doing the hard thing. This is what builds self-esteem. So the lack of ambition to go and pursue the things you want often comes from not feeling good enough to do it. I don't know if I can do it. I'm not worthy. I'm not these things. But that thing comes because you've continually broken your own word to yourself multiple times in the past. Your brain has millions of pieces of evidence of times where you've said you were going to do a thing, then you didn't do the thing because you're like, well, no one's going to know. But you know what? You know. So now when you're like, hey, I'm going to go speak on stage, start a business, your brain's like, fuck, I don't know if you will. I don't know if you can because, you don't even get up on your first alarm. You can't even stop watching Netflix after one episode. Like all these things you said you were going to do and you do, you've broken your own word. I remember, right? And that's what people think they can escape. Like, I'll keep my word to my friend, but when I say I'm going to do something, make sure you do it because these are the little tiny things that are building evidence and self-esteem within ourselves. So I think that's why I love that sick shit because it's like another ability to get even more evidence for myself, but just really see what I'm made of. It's exciting.
It makes that self-talk a little bit easier, hey?
Yeah. Well,
you go, well, why wouldn't I do this? I've just done that.
You want to hear a crazy fucking story? I haven't shared this to anybody yet because I just came back from America. This was next level. And I'm going back to do 5 days with these guys. So when I was in America, I got kidnapped. Right? I got kidnapped when I was in Vegas. And I was in a building speaking with a friend, and then all of a sudden all the lights went out. There was a flashbang that went off, so a massive bang. Doors got kicked in. These guys in balaclavas with AKs in their head came and smashed us on the ground, handcuffed us, bagged us, and started walking us out, threw us in the back of a car. And luckily I watched Taken that week. I watched Taken right before that. Get into the car and I'm counting in my head. Okay, left turn, 1, 2, 3, right. And I'm mapping in my head where we are. And the whole time they're talking to each other in like another language and then a little bit in English. We're taking you to somewhere else. We're going to take you to the boss. You've pissed off the wrong people. And I'm noticing in my head, we're mapping it and we did a circle and we came back to the same place. I'm like, we're at the same fucking place. Like, what's going on here? And then we get back and I'm not going to tell you all the things that happened because it's like probably very alarming for a lot of people. But a proper like interrogation shit was happening. It was mental. Got like electrocuted. It was crazy. And then at the end of it, we broke out of the ropes that we're in, took the bag off, picked up a gun and got out. And the whole thing, I paid to have that happen. Right?
Oh, so you planned this out
yeah.
too?
I didn't know it was going to happen to that degree, but there was a thing that you can do where it's like, hey, you can get kidnapped. See what it's like. See how you respond. How do you deal with it mentally? And it was fucking legit. And then after they break down...
But surely the fact that you know that it's coming though has to change somewhat of an element.
A little bit, right? But then also when you get electrocuted, shit gets real quick as well.
Yeah.
When the
it's like cutting off your ear. I'm out. Safety word.
When the flashbang goes off, it gets real.
Yeah.
When they boot the door in, it's like shit. But because of skydiving and putting myself in stressful situations, it's called stress exposure. The more you really allow yourself to get exposed to a shit ton of stress, your body gets used to doing it more and more and more. So the first time I jumped out of an airplane, it was really frightening. Now I do it, and it's kind of concerning because I land on the ground, I'm just chill. Yeah. Like, how was that? I'm like, yeah, it was good. It was a good landing. Like, I'm just relaxed. So I've learned how to really calm my nervous system in the midst of absolute chaos. So I noticed myself doing that. The first like minute was insane through this process. And then after I'm like telling myself, I'm just calming myself so I can be aware. I'm like, don't be stupid. Think about it. And then they broke down the whole thing, taught us how to escape and all this shit. And so I purposely did that. I'm going to go back and do 5 whole days, advanced weapons training, how to get, like you get attacked with knives, how to get yourself, like how to defend yourself if being attacked with knives, how to defend yourself if you ever get in a situation where you're about to get executed. Crazy stuff. And people are like, why do you need to do that? I don't know. But if I can do something that's probably like the most frightening thing really anyone could probably go through in their life, I'm not sure. Like you get kidnapped by a terrorist and you're about to get executed and you think that, that's pretty extreme. And if I can learn how to think clearly under that, then shit, man. Bring me a business problem that Sally's having at work. I'm going to handle that like a boss.
Yeah, big problems make little problems not seem as hard.
Yes.
I'll brush over real quickly, but it was funny. I was in my house. I had a really bad accident where a spinal cord injury shut off my body, couldn't feel anything, really fucked up. And I was recovering from that, didn't have temperature in my body, didn't have feeling in my body, was like in a pretty bad way, had a neck brace on. And I was in the kitchen and I was just trying to like butter toast, and I could barely even hold the knife to butter toast. Like I was not in a good way. And my housemate gets home and he starts complaining about something at work. And without even thinking, I didn't do this to be a dick or I didn't do this to try and make him feel bad, but he's complaining about something like he wasn't making sales or like he had a bad day. Mm-hmm. And I just said in passing, I was like, oh, at least you don't have a spinal cord injury. And he just stopped. And without even like saying anything back, he just waited for a second. He's like, no, you're right. Today was fine. And it was like that big problem suddenly trumps someone else's little problem and gives them the perspective to realize, oh, this doesn't mean shit. And I guess if you're putting yourself in those situations where you're getting kidnapped or you're skydiving or you're putting your body under this immense stress, you get better at dealing with it. And then when you have something go really wrong, you go, well, I'm just going to deal with it without all this emotion that's going to be attached to it that's actually going to make me not logical, not make any sense of it, and just probably make the wrong decision. Where if you can just be very, okay, this is what I need to do and this is what I will do, and then it works out.
Yeah.
Because even how you said because I've done skydiving twice, and the first time, scared shitless, thought I was going to die. Second time, I remember I left my watch on with the heart rate and my heart barely even spiked. And it's just like how quickly I think people underestimate how quickly they can become calm in a moment that they once thought was probably going to kill them. And even I got into paragliding a little bit, and I remember the first time I took off by myself, the fear, the anxiousness and everything. And then I remember by the third time by myself, it was like you said, it's like I should be more nervous, but I'm not. And the instructor said the biggest thing we have issues with is people become too comfortable too quickly. And they miss the little things. Because the first time I went on myself, I'm checking all the ropes, I'm checking everything, I'm double checking it, I'm triple checking it. Yeah. By the fourth time, like, let's go. And I think that's you can get more comfortable with something, but also don't miss the little things that are always going to be there that you need to put energy into as well.
100%. Yeah, it's I see the same thing in skydiving. It's because when you're part of the federation, if anyone dies, you get an email. Everyone gets an email to sort of let you know. Like, here's what's happened, just so you're aware of like deaths and what caused them. And every time I've received one here in Australia, every single time except one, every death was someone's like, well, their D license, which is super advanced, 500 jumps, 800 jumps, 1,000 jumps. It's like these guys were professionals, and then they just got complacent, or they try to push the limits more. That's what happens. And I've already sort of assessed that, because it's like the dopamine limit as well. The more you get comfortable with that, it doesn't get you off anymore. Like for me to get really fired up jumping out of the airplane now, it's like a backflip out. It's like, awesome. You know, I don't know, it's belly out, you know. So it's like, that's why people, they start lowering the plane, they jump out lower, so it's close to the ground, so there's less, they gotta quickly pull the chute and then quickly fix, or they do base jumping, all these things just to try and get that rush again. And I've already sort of made an agreement to myself. The moment I find myself changing how I do the sport of skydiving just to get that rush will be the day I stop. Yeah. Because I know I'm a bit of a sicko like that, and I want to make sure I will never base jump. I want a wingsuit and do some crazy shit like that. But I won't do it for the like, I'm not gonna go wingsuit between
trees and mountains.
You see those crazy people? Yeah. I'm not gonna do that for the sake of trying to get a rush. That's what I know it's for. I'm like, nah, then it's like a drug. I'm just gonna try and balance that. You know, I don't want to be a drug addict, but you know.
Yeah,
I'll be a recreational user.
Do you know like the movie Impact? Mark, I can't think of his last name. He skydives out of around Byron as well, but he had an accident where he got a guy jumped after him and they had an impact.
Yeah.
And he got knocked out and he came to as he was falling and he was like trying to pull his thing but couldn't get it, and it actually opened about 100 meters from the ground.
Yep.
And he survived. But I did a podcast with him, and he's got a documentary coming out that talks about not just that, because everyone's wearing GoPro, so they got it all on film. But it's just talking about, that like how far you push yourself with something like that. And when, like you said, it becomes, I need a hit, I need that emotional rush to get me going. And then like, at what point do you go, okay, well, like this is just becoming dangerous now?
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky because, a lot of skydivers are, I guess I just bring a different attitude to it because I just very aware of what's driving me, right? Because I do the work. But a lot of people who skydive do it because they're just thrill seekers. They're like little skits. They're just out there, like it's a special kind of person to want to go voluntarily throw yourself out of an airplane. So yeah, I've definitely seen people just the big thrill seekers. That's why it becomes, I was talking to Cohen Ray. Cohen Ray used to be a skydiver and he's done a couple hundred. Like, why'd you stop? He goes, well, when I had my kid, that changed a lot. He goes, but then I went back and did another jump, and one of the times I had a malfunction, and there was not enough time because I was like 1,000 feet from the floor. So what happens is you have an emergency chute. So if your first parachute is completely fucked, you just rip it off and you pop your second one. If your second one's fucked, then you're fucked. But if you don't pull your first one and you're still falling at whatever speed, I forget what it is, I should remember this, but I think call it 500 feet. It's not that. It might be 750. It might be 250. 250 sounds small. It's like a very not much to the ground though. If you're still falling at that speed and you hit that altitude, it'll automatically deploy. So it's built to save your life. So if you do get knocked out, that's probably, it might have automatically deployed, but it might like break your legs. And he said to me, he goes, the day I stopped was I was coming down and I had a malfunction and I didn't have time. So you've got to rip it off so it's gone before you deploy the next one. Otherwise they can get tangled. So he goes, it was so close to the ground, I didn't even have time. I popped them both at the exact same time and prayed that it didn't get tangled. And he goes, then I landed and that was it. I'm like, yeah, because people you choose when you want to open your parachute, at what altitude, right? So it's like, you really should do it. Like I do it quite early, but people want to get more free fall. They want to do more fun shit. You push the barrier. So it's something I'm personally aware of taking risk, but still within the space of where I think all risks eventually do hit a point where it becomes, this is stupid. And I don't want to ever get to a point where it's like, I'm doing this because it's a stupid risk. I want to do it because this is exciting and thrilling, but it's also controlled and managed risk. Yeah.
I'll ask you 2 more questions because I know you got to get out of here. What are you actually scared of though? Like, what are you scared of?
Sharks. I fucking hate them.
Do you surf?
Not really for that reason, but I scuba dive. So I'm okay if I see them underwater. I'm okay if I see them underwater because they don't usually attack. Like I've had them swim over my laps. Not a great white. I know some friends who go swim with great whites. I'm like, you're fucked. Like I'm good to just, like I don't want to die in a shark rip my freaking chest open while I'm underwater because I went and swam with them. It's what they do. Or bull sharks. I'm like, I'll go swim with the turtles and the fish and shit. See, but I'm aware of that risk if I scuba dive. So I'm not a huge fan of sharks, to be honest. But I would say my biggest fear is legitimately getting to the end of my life and realizing that I could have done more. And I know that's what drives me. So I'm very driven by wanting to really make sure I do as much as humanly possible.
Like more is a mirage.
What do you mean?
Because look at where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure 21-year-old you would have looked at where you are now and you've probably exceeded your idea of what was possible and what you've done. Mm-hmm. So it's like if you were looking back at 21-year-old you and you said, this is what you're going to get to, how old are you now?
31 now.
31 now. You'd be like, well, that's far outweighed what I thought was possible for myself. So you saying, there's more. Mm-hmm. It's like, there's always going to be more.
There's always going to be more, yeah.
And I'm sure like when you get to 80, you'd be like, well, I really hope I get better at bowls before I like cark it. Like there's always going to be an expectation of more. Because I always, and like that's it's probably the most common answer I get on this show when I talk to people, successful people, they always say like, unfulfilled potential.
Yeah.
And I guess, but what is that potential to you? Because that potential is like, it's endless.
100%. I think it's so, why I sort of think about it is I also know that I will be disappointed when I die, right? Like, let's say, hypothetically, you go and meet the person. Like, what I really believe is that when I die, I'm going to meet the person I could have become. And it's either going to be someone who believed all the shit and didn't amount to anything, and I'm going to be able to get there and be like, fuck yeah, it's like the end of the game. That was a good game, and I couldn't have done better, and I'm happy with myself. Or I'm going to meet the person who could have done more if he didn't allow himself to play small and listen to the small minds of other people and do these things. And I want to make sure that when I get there, I'm the first person being like, fuck, I did my best. I left it all out on the field. And I have the self-acceptance enough to not be hard on myself. Like, I don't think I'm going to get to the end of my life and be like, oh my God, my life was worthless. It's having the balance of that. But I know it's what drives me, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. So like, more isn't necessarily like, it's just more. Like, more, it's not necessarily money, even though we do want to make a lot more. It's experiences. I just want to do everything. I want to learn piano. Like, I want to get really good at salsa. Like, I want to learn how to kite surf. I want to do all this cool shit, you know? And what happens in part of the plan is I got to make the money first so I can have all these experiences later. So it's sort of the plan. But I make sure I don't make sacrifices either. Like, I'm not sacrificing my joy to make the money. I do both.
Yeah, balancing both of those. So you don't get too old and look back and be like, well, I can't kite surf now. My knees are fucked. Like,
yes. Yeah.
Balancing out. How do you want to be remembered when you are gone?
I think I'd like to be remembered as somebody who just lived without limits. Not physical, but like mental limits. Someone who's just always saw the good in everything and didn't take shit very seriously. Like, and it was a demonstration, was a I don't know what the right word is, like a example of what life really can be, what you can get from life if you choose to really go for it and stop listening to the opinions that you tell yourself and the opinions of other small-minded people. I think that would be cool.
I like that. All right, we'll wrap it up. Before we go, what have you got coming up? When's your talks happening, and when this book's still in the process of getting written? But
books take a long time to write. I put myself away for a weekend. I'm like, because I told my team, I'm like, okay, the book has to be finished by the end of the financial year. I'm like, gang. And so then Maddie was like, okay, we need to book you 3 days away so you can just knuckle down and write it. I was like, good. 3 days away, came back, wrote the first chapter. Fuck, man, this is because it's you're putting this whole thing together. And you're like, well, if I'm writing that, then it's got to change. And it's just, like, it's a lot happening. So that book, I don't know when it will come out. Next year is the goal. I like to have it finished by me by the end of this year, and then I'm gonna give it to someone else who's like an actual writer, so then they can go through and sort of make it sound better. Because I'm super dyslexic. So next year is the goal for that to come out. The Dream Led method, that will be the 5 laws on how to create your dream life. But the biggest thing we've got coming up at the moment, I don't know when this will be released or not, but in 5 weeks from now, we have Dreamfest. So Dreamfest is 2-day entrepreneur festival. We run this event every year. You should come. I'll give you tickets for it. Cohen Ray is the headline speaker. Daniel G. He's like number one sales trainer in the world. He's coming over from America. We've got a lot of just gangster entrepreneurs from mindset, social media, AI, finance, business. 2-day, just super, super cool. DJs and shit. And then we have a big after party. I've hired a beach club for it. So I want to just bring some more fun and excitement to business conferences. Yeah. And so where entrepreneurs can really grow and get the things they need and opportunities to get to the next level, but also network and have a fun experience. So that's coming up September 6, 7. We can give you the link so people can get a ticket if they want.
I'll throw a link in the show notes and we'll push it out there.
Yeah. They can go to dreamfest2024.com. They can get it there, and we can give you the links as well. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Cheers for the chat, Morgan. We'll get you out of here.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, brother.
No, appreciate it.
So good.
See you, bro.